Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Island Stats Walk Down Memory Lane. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me is co-host Dennis Brown. And this evening we are joined by Stan Douglas, an administrator. First, he was an athlete and then became an administrator of the Bermuda Track and Field Association. Now it's called Bermuda National Athletic Association, as well as he was a member of the executive committee for the Bermuda Olympic Association before moving on to become the Secretary General. Dennis, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Douglas will have plenty of stories to tell us about, behind the scenes of administration that a lot of people don't realize are the facets in ensuring that organizations, athletes, and the like get to where they're going, need to be given everything they need along the way. As you have started your own organization, Dennis, you would know it's a lot of work behind the scenes.
Oh, definitely, and this is a part of every sports organization that people should basically get to know, because, like you said, they think running a club, running an organization is a piece of cake, but it takes many pieces to make sure that these organizations are running efficiently. And it's good to have Stan on. If he's a good friend of Nova Simons, I'm waiting for a lot of these stories about where they used to go up to training and watch the girls in those shorts and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm waiting for that.
Yeah.
Well, you have to cut the power.
You have to guide me, Dennis. I try not to talk that way. We're in the now phase of life where some of the things that went on 30 years ago, 40 years ago is not accepted in the sight of God now. And I'll leave it like that.
Okay. All right.
But it's good to see you, Denny. Good to see you, my friend.
Yes, you as well, Stan.
Yeah.
Stan, many people go into sport as athletes, but not many want to take up the opportunity to stay in the sport as far as administration and coaching and the like. You have quite a few that do, but many don't. But what attracted you to stay within the sport and actually reach the leadership position of the sport in track and field?
Well, in track and field, there was just a need as it was a growing from the 70s. There was a need for new blood, and I sort of just accepted the challenge. And the reason I accepted the challenge for track and field is that although I wasn't one of the great athletes, it actually helped me to become a settled person. Track and field taught me that if you plan and set goals, and if you work towards them, you'll be a lot further than when you started. So with that in mind, I kept hanging in there because I knew that there were going to be young people like myself who needed some guidance. I was brought up on Gordon Dundonnell, and although we had a great community, when you start to raise your personal expectations, you become a better person, So athletics, sometimes I say to people, it basically saved my life, gave me some redirection, and had me look at myself more than others when I set my personal goals. And I think that's the thing that I would like to tell people about sport, because if you look around Bermuda, sport is not in its same place. It's not in its same place in school because we've become totally academic, and we failed to understand that sometimes a boy needs a reason to come to school because he doesn't see himself as a winner in the classroom. But if he knows that he has to be a winner to be on the soccer team, he has to be a winner to be on the cricket team, he will set personal goals in order to achieve the goals that maybe not related to school, but it helps him to develop his own personal place. And it helps women too. If you look around now and you see the kids, like I work here at Washington Mall, and I see kids coming and running through the mall because in school, they're confined to the academic portfolio, which is the only discipline they have. They don't see that running through the mall affects others. They don't see that going around with your mask affects others because they have no personal setting. Are they interested in? And I'm thinking sometimes when I look, there's no music in a lot of the schools, or it's part-time. And I believe that the arts and sport plays a major role in self-development. So that's where my thought is. And that's why I stayed in the game for as long as I could. And the only reason I'm not in the BOA right now is that I fell ill. I had kidney failure. I'm announcing it to everyone. I'm looking for a donor. But at the same time, I'm saying that I'm here if you need my opinion on something, if you need me on a subcommittee. The only reason I backed down was because at the time I was very sick and I couldn't make the meetings. And I'm one of those people that believe in participation because it's not going to always go the way you want it to go, but you have to participate in order to have your voice heard. And that's why I spent that time, over 40 years now. No, sorry, maybe almost 50 years working with the association. There was one time when I did coaching courses and I went on to Barbados as a coach. And when we had Carifta here in Bermuda in the 80s, I was coaching high jump, in some cases, not a high jumper, but I loved the technical side of it. And under Clive Long at the time, who was monitoring my progress, I enjoyed Carifta as a coach with the high jumpers. And I really enjoyed that. So track and field has given me a lot of joy and a lot of personal review of myself. And therefore, I've gotten some development from it. Excuse me, you guys, just a second. Yeah. Okay. You know, in this world, everybody tries to reach me at this time because it's almost knock-off time. Yeah. So, yeah, that's why.
Okay, Stan,
Yes,
before I get into my first question, I looked at a previous article that you had, and one of the things you talked about was about, it said sports was a personal passion of yours.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that by participating in organized sports, young people gain important lessons about life, what it means to set goals and work hard to achieve, and huge sense of satisfaction and pride that comes with realizing these goals.
Absolutely.
What do you mean by that? Because one of the things I always say is that sports builds character.
Absolutely.
But it also reveals character in different ways. So when the going gets tough, it reveals who can get tough with when it gets good.
And
So go ahead. So
I think that it's all young people need to be challenged one way or the other. Some are challenged in the classroom, and that's good enough. Some don't feel like they fit, and therefore they have to do something that they find personal success in. And sport, music, all those things allow our young people to find themselves because you, for example, played soccer, and you know the challenges, the pressure. It's like you're a performer. You go out on the field and you say, not today. And that has put you in a position where you were able to make quality decisions on your own because you have practiced that when it's not going to hurt anybody, when it's not going to harm people, right? So a lot of times, right, we expect people just to do what we say, but we have to create individuals so that what happens is they look forward to something more than what life just gives. And if you start looking for more, you start putting yourself in a position where you're going to learn the good and the bad of it. And then you learn to make the best decisions. If you don't fail sometimes, what does winning mean to you? Think about that.
Yeah.
So where do you want the failure? Do you want the failure with the law? Do you want the failure with the academics? And both of those lead to places we don't want a child to go. Or do you just want to learn from a coach, an administrator, how we can move forward and how you can challenge yourself without getting yourself in trouble? Because when I can remember going to a world championships with Brian Wellman. Brian Wellman said to me, this is going to be okay, mate. Just like that. I said, what you mean? He says, well, this guy can only, his best jump is his first jump. He said, this guy, he's got to wait till his fourth jump. So if he doesn't do good in his third jump, I'm not going to worry about him no more. What I'm saying is he learned people, he learned how to be successful, and he built confidence. So when he went in there, he basically said to me, there's only one person I'm worrying about here. And that's the person who beat him. Everybody else, he came second. Because what it is he, over the period of time, even with Flora Duffy, over the period of time, she learned more about herself in order to not be defeated under pressure. So I'm all about young people having the opportunities to challenge themselves when it's not going to bring them any harm. That's why you're there as a coach, to tell them how to kick the ball right. When I was doing high jump, I used to do three stride approach just to see what they were capable of, because in the event, depending on their strength, they'll either do 7 strides or 9 strides. And I can remember with Nicky Saunders, right? He was there trying to qualify for Carifta one year, and he just didn't believe it here. So I fooled him. I said, hey, Brew, let's do 3 stride attempts. And I said, don't worry about the height. The height that he was jumping over on 3 strides was the qualifying mark. So the next time he went there, because I did have him come under the bar once, and he looked at me and said, man, what's that? What height we're jumping? I said, you're jumping the qualifying height. So what that did was put in his mind that he was capable. He was capable all that time. It wasn't my coaching that was helping it, but I had to fool him into understanding that he was capable. We have to work with young people and get them to a point where they feel like they can make decisions and where they experience failure, because when success comes, it is a greater feeling. And that's where I'm at. I'm so committed to sport and personal development of athletes, because I know what it did for me. And I wasn't a great athlete, coming 3rd and 4th, but I was coming 3rd and 4th to guys who were going to Carifta and winning. So I just believe that we have to make a person well balanced through academics, through sport, and through personal development, but they have to have a desire to be better than where they are now.
It's interesting you said something just now, Stan. You said, you were coming 3rd and 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Why some athletes nowadays, or some young people nowadays, if they knew they were coming 3rd and 4th, they would walk away. Why did you stay in, and what drove you to try to either eventually beat the people in front of you or just to make them better?
Well, yeah, that was one of the things that happened. But for me, we formed a community at the stadium.
We heard about the community.
There was about 30 athletes, male and female, and we became a community. You like that?
You didn't know it at the front.
Anyhow, so that community kept you balanced. When the last president of the BNA became president, I went up to him and I said, you got my support. And I worked with them in the background, because I can remember for Donna, one year we all qualified for Carifta, and there was a financial shortage. And Donna and I were the 2 that were left back in Bermuda.
Oh,
However, out of all the athletes, Donna and I are the 2 that sought to work with the administration of the BNA. And sometimes disappointment breeds a different hunger. So when I went to I think it was Barbados as coach, and I was working in the background, that was my real first opportunity to organize and administer a timetable for athletes so that they don't have to worry about anything. I give you your time to be there, and it was quite enjoyable. And then I had some free time, of course. Dennis.
Yeah, I heard about it. I heard.
And I did my first coaching course in Barbados, where we had a gentleman come over from England and do it for all the islands. That course was a test course for the course that now exists by the IAAF. That's how long ago I was involved in athletics and coaching. And as I said, I never got on the plane as an athlete because I had Cal Deal, Norbert Simons, and even later when I was getting faster, all of a sudden you have Mike Sharp and Gregory Simons, and all of these guys became Olympians. You understand what I'm saying? So we have had some quality experiences, even though we were not, the big names. I had good relationships. There are, out of that 30 people that I was involved with at the time, a great deal of them got scholarship. Cal went to Seton Hall. It was good. And when you look at those things, especially for athletes who were smart enough to complete all of the mission, we have people now working in Bermuda who may not have had the successes they had without winning and losing, and realizing that losing is not the end. Losing is a lesson that we take on to the next challenge. So I'm definitely about sport. I remember being on a committee. It was called the Technical Committee then, and we were talking about cycling. I had to go online and read everything about it because I knew nothing about it. But when you do that, then you're better able to assess and communicate the position of the leadership by knowing exactly what you're talking about. Now, a lot of people get on teams because it is for the title, it's for their personal name, and they don't bring anything to the table. And you have to watch that. If you don't have a passion, if you don't have a willingness to learn, then why are you there? If you're not going to help anybody. And like I said, sport helped me, so I was there to help anyone who had the interest in being better than what they are now.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Dennis, you can ask another question. We'll be right back.
John Barrett & Son, Bermuda's leading distributor of fine beverages, have brought us something fresh and exciting this month. Mystic Juices, skillfully blended for captivating flavor and loaded with nutritional value. Mystic Juices not only taste remarkably good, one serving will supply an abundance of vitamins A and C, more than the certified measure needed to meet your daily requirements. This month we're featuring delicious and nutritious Mystic Juices in an enticing range of flavors in 64 and 16-ounce bottles. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda.
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
Welcome back, Dennis.
Okay, Stan.
Yes, sir.
One of the things I always used to tell parents, and I'm straight up with parents at times, well, most times, on 99.9% of the time, is your son may not cut it as a football player, but there are other rules within football that your son can participate in, i.e.,
Absolutely.
refereeing, being a manager, and probably one of the best fullbacks that I ever played with, probably never played for the national team. That's David Sabir. And David Sabir
Yeah,
ended
yeah,
up being where he is today, a big the General Secretary of Bermuda Football Association. And he's known well all over the world. You know what I mean? David's on,
absolutely.
I believe, is on a couple of big FIFA committees, but not all players or athletes are going to be top athletes, and it's always room for like medics and stuff like
Yeah,
that. You know what
yeah,
I mean? So
yeah,
that's what I would tell parent if I see their player or their child, not up to
yeah.
scratch, because not everybody's gonna cut it.
Well,
So go ahead.
yeah, David's I consider David as a great example in a someone with a persistence to keep the sport going. I think David played in college, but
Yes.
of course, at that time, Dennis, the level of soccer was so high in that everyone was very competitive, and he never gave up on sport. I
Mhm.
remember him telling me one time he played golf and played well enough, he said, to probably go on tour. And I went, seriously? And then somebody else came along and told me, hey, this guy's a great golfer. If his back wasn't,
Right.
out of condition. So, yeah, I say that too. I mean, I've had opportunities to talk to parents, but the real deal is I don't focus on the performance at first, because sometimes, and I found this when I was coaching, sometimes the kid that comes third is the kid that can learn. See, because
Mhm.
some people have to be coachable. I've seen some real talent that's just not coachable because they think that they're best now, and then they want to go out on the international circuit and they find out they really don't have it. So it's not just those that we may think in the beginning just don't have it. And I know for you in soccer, you're probably talking about somebody that's been in your program for a while, and you can see that they don't have the mindset, they don't have the skill set, and probably not, you're not able to coach them further. Okay, well, that's cool. But what we have, especially what we had in track and field, and I had an incident because when you talk truth to people, sometimes they're overwhelmed by truth. But we had some athletes that wanted to go to a higher height, but they weren't running a time that was worthy of them getting on the plane. Now, I already know about that because I've had that happen to me. It doesn't mean that your coach is being mean. It means your coach is giving you truth. And sometimes that may have to involve, depending on the age, bringing the parent in with you first before you start to communicate with them, because all of the psychological part of it we have to deal with. We have to ensure that we're not losing the child because of the sport, because you may have to place them in another job so that they can stay with that community, because the social side of sport is also important for your development. If you have a group of people that's trying to go somewhere, and even though you're not of their caliber in sport, but you're riding that train with them, you start to set goals based on your ability, and then you learn something from that. Because I'm all about the learning process of it all, right? And all your
Mr.
coaches.
Simons is chiming in. Mr. Simons is chiming in, talking about he has a scar on his finger to prove it.
Yeah.
Let's leave that right.
Leave that right there.
Send me
I
an
told,
email, Norbert. Send me an email, Norbert.
I told him that I was on the show today, and he says, "Well, keep it honest." And I said, "Well, I want to keep it honest, but I have to be gentle, right?" So, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to tell you that there are times, yes, you have to tell an athlete that, look, this is not happening. But most times, I find, because I was one of those athletes that sometimes I had other interest at the time, and I did not sort of complete the plan. And as I got a little bit older, in fact, when I went off to school in Canada, was when I realized that if I just stick to the plan, the runs will come. And when I went to Canada, I ran my fastest time, and I was like, wow, that was easy. But it was about sticking to the plan and doing the work. If you don't do the work, you don't get any type of success. And that's the best thing to learn in sport. That, hey, I didn't do the work, and I didn't achieve the goals. But the other thing is, I guess you have to find out. Now, athletics is funny because you can work with a kid for 6 months and not really see that potential, because that's your teaching phase. You're trying to get them to understand what it takes. For example, if you ever looked at the women's 100 meter in Tokyo, those ladies were not just sprinters. They were disciplined throughout the whole 100 meters. And how does that happen? That happens through continuous training, monitoring of the phases of the event, and them learning. Because remember, when you're out there by yourself. So if you don't know what you're doing, no matter how fast you are, it doesn't work. So I think that coaching is a teaching, and it's a social lesson, especially in the game of soccer. It's about belonging. And then you find out whether they have the tools to learn, because it is a teaching moment. So every coach, like for example, in the Canadian system, every coach has to be certified in a program like SCARS. They just have to have it, because the effect that you have on a child when you chastise them, when you lift them up, goes with them for the rest of their life.
What would you say was a standout moment for you as an administrator, whether it be at the Track and Field Association or at the Bermuda Olympic Association?
Wow. The Olympic Association has given me an opportunity to lead. And one of the things I was told by Phil Gashad is that the role that I was taking on, and I took on for a few years, of chef de mission, was a role where I made it absolutely comfortable for the athletes, so they don't have to think about anything else. Our challenge sometimes was we had managers from the sport that was attending the games, who was being rewarded for the work they did, but didn't understand the job that they had at hand. There are certain things I do from a top level administration, and then there are several things they have to do as a sport administrator. That changed over the period of time. So what was the I don't know. I went in there sometimes a little bit enthusiastic and trying my absolute best to do the best job I could. And I guess I was rewarded with the job over and over because of that. Because once the Secretary General got there, or the President got there, one of them would visit me and ask a host of questions to ensure that everybody was in place. And most times when that period happened, I found a feeling of success because I can answer all the questions that were required of them. And so it wasn't just one thing. It was a host of successful moments when you can see that the managers and the athletes are well informed and that you put things in place to make life a little easier for them when they get there. And I enjoyed that the most, to be frank with you. It was a lot of work for most times because you start sometimes 8 months before with a binder that's about 4 inches wide. And basically you have to know what they're offering and what you require for your athletes. My first Olympics was the 2002 Salt Lake Games. And we only had one athlete. I arrived there before them and put as much in place as possible for that athlete to be able to enjoy their stay there. So, and that was difficult for me because it was extremely cold, something I hadn't seen since school in Canada. And however, because I had knowledge of everything that they presented, sometimes I would get a call from that administration and say, we're going to send so-and-so to you so that you can explain this to them. So that was probably a high point when I knew that I knew what I knew and I knew how to explain it to others, and how to ensure that I can explain it to the athlete. And so that was my first Olympics as a lead. My first Olympics was '96 in Atlanta. Yeah, and that was fabulous. That was fabulous. I was able to be there the entire time in the village, which was a brand new experience for me. But I had a good crew of athletes and a good crew of leaders there. So there was people that I can ask questions if I needed to. Also, my relationship at the time with the IAAF was high. I went to a few people within the organization for. It was good. It was good.
So we're going to take another commercial break. When we come back, Dennis Sharp again.
The use of butter goes back millennia, and its exalted status in the cooking world and in so many kitchens is undeniable. Around 3,000 years ago, ghee, or clarified butter, was developed in India and is the cooking oil of choice in many regions of the subcontinent, and compared to butter has a higher smoke point, reduced dairy solids, and a more robust, nuanced flavor. And to Organic Valley, creators of a certified organic version of this versatile traditional staple. This month we're featuring Organic Valley Ghee Clarified Butter. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
Dennis?
Okay, Stan, so I always wondered about the role of the chef de mission, and I also saw that you have been to several international festivals where Bermuda was represented, the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Olympic Games in 2012, Commonwealth Games in India in 2010, Commonwealth Youth Games in India again in 2008, the Winter Games in Salt Lake City, CAC Games, Puerto Rico, 1993, and the team manager of Bermuda at the Olympics in 1996. Sports, track and field has been great to you in allowing you to see the world. How important is, as the chef de mission, is research and preparation before your athletes get to that destination? Because I remember being in the national team, and we got to destinations and it's the pits.
Yeah.
I remember my last engagement with the under 17 national team. I was, when they say, about 4 years ago. Before we left Bermuda, we were going to St. Vincent. They told us it's going to be two players to a room in a nice little hotel. They showed us pictures. Once we get there, they changed the location, send us in a crazy environment, and instead of being two to a room, now they have 4 or 5 guys to a room. So apparently somebody didn't do their research, whatever, blah blah blah. So how important is research and preparation? And then if it doesn't meet your needs, what happens after that?
Well, in 1993, which was my first chef de mission's job, which was a CAC Games, I remember the then Secretary General, John Hopkins, saying to me, "You must do what it takes for the athlete to have a good environment so that they can perform at their best." And I can remember at that games fighting with the organizers because they wanted to have what they call a unisex bathroom. And at that games, I had hockey players, a male team and a female team. And I just found that unacceptable. I was supported by Jamaica in the meeting when I said it was unacceptable. And we got something done about it. So you must be able to activate when things are not right, but you must be able to have as much knowledge as possible. For example, we went to Pune in India for the youth games. In all of the workup, they showed us this wonderful hotel, and it was on a complex where you didn't have to leave the complex to participate in your sports. Well, one, they didn't give us the allocation of places for our coaches because we had 2 sports there, and therefore we had 2 coaches who became the administrators. And one of the coaches had to stay off the property. But more than that, we had to fight for our rooms because part of the hotel was not complete.
Whoa.
So by being a chef that gets there early, I fought all of that before the people got there, before the athletes got there. I don't even think they knew until later, after the games. But there was a lot of fighting. And I can remember being in a meeting, and one of those guys was so angry with the questions I asked, he just told me, "Shut up." And that's when most of the Caribbean folk stood up and said, "We're leaving." And he was, why are you leaving? Well, he said that you disrespect one, you disrespect all. And for them, the Pune Games was a precursor to them having the Delhi Games. So they tried to do everything to accommodate us, because if the Caribbean would have left, it would have been the highlight in the papers the next day. So that made them buck up. However, when we went to 2010, although the buildings were finished, the allocation that they had told us we were going to have the year before, when I went to the chefs meeting, they moved us, because they moved all the small nations and they catered to Australia, England, and therefore they had a whole building. And the building that we, the Caribbean, was supposed to have, which was finished early, right? They had that, and we were moved. So I can remember I had an assistant for that because that was Commonwealth Games is generally where we take quite a few people. And she looked at me and says, "What are we going to do?" I said, "Not a problem." I called then the head of the CA Commonwealth Games. I called a few people and I activated. They came to see us and they said, "Please, please." I said, "No." I said, "My athletes are arriving tomorrow and my goal is that when they arrive, they don't have a problem." So it was a very interesting and challenging time, but you have to be prepared to maintain relationships, but at the same time, get what you need for your people. And when the athletes got there, I had rooms allocated, all of those sort of things I tend to manage even before I get to the games. So when you arrive off the plane and you're sitting in the processing area, I already can tell you where you're going to be sleeping, who's in your room, and things like that. So for me, I took that job so serious that by the time you got there, there were things on your door with your name on it. There were some of the rules that I expected you to abide by, and it was what we did. And I think over time I got better at it because some of the faults that I may have missed in the beginning, I covered in the next one. And by the time you came to a games that I was there, I had already spoken to your coach, and some people cannot be in a room with the other person. You know, some people sleep differently. We try to accommodate all of that. One of the rules I had is that all the females will be in my sleeping quarters, meaning that my room would be at the bottom of the stairs and I can hear them come and go, because I have a thing about protecting women in these communities where there are people from other cultures that sometimes don't respect women the way we do in Bermuda.
Mm.
So a lot of it is preparation. A lot of it is reading what they hand out to you, because Pune, what they handed us was a package that was beautiful. And when we got there, I can remember one night the leader of St. Lucia came to me and says, "Our room had rats. We bring it up in the meeting and they have to activate." And, you make friends with people who get things done. And so that if you do have a challenge, you can combine your efforts to get things done for the athletes. For example, we wanted to take the athletes near the end of the games on a tour. Most of them wanted to go shopping, but we decided to take them to Gandhi's last place of residence, where he started a school for women. And we took them there on our way to the shopping, because I feel that these experiences for young people must be one where they don't just accomplish sport, but they learn more about themselves and the country they're in. So I try to do that whenever possible. As far as me getting around those countries, the only reason I get around the country is because I'm following an athlete, especially in the Olympics. In London, for example, I went off once from the village, and that was to watch the jumping for equestrian. That was the only time I was away from the village. Every time after that was because I was following an athlete. And I rest in between, because, for example, I'm there normally 3 to 4 days before. I do as much work as I can then to make the athlete arrival as comfortable as possible, because they come in, they have to wait in a few lines to be processed, and by the time that's over, the best thing you can do for them is get them to the room where they can try to settle as quickly as possible. Most of them will have training within 2 days of arriving, and you just want to put them in the best possible position in order to compete.
We're going to take another commercial break, but I want to ask this question before we go, and you can answer it when we come back, is how do we get that message, what chefs and managers' roles are, to the general public? Because we often hear whenever, especially in the Olympic Association, there's always that chatter about, oh, all these officials are going, more officials than athletes, They're going for a vacation and all that uneducated, but sometimes malicious, verbiage that goes out there. So just how do we get a better message out there of the roles that the chef and the managers play in these, in these major festivals? But we'll be right back. You can answer that.
John Barrett & Son, Bermuda's leading distributor of fine beverages, have brought us something fresh and exciting this month. Mystic Juices, skillfully blended for captivating flavor and loaded with nutritional value. Mystic Juices not only taste remarkably good, one serving will supply an abundance of vitamins A and C, more than the certified measure needed to meet your daily requirements. This month we're featuring delicious and nutritious Mystic Juices in an enticing range of flavors in 64 and 16-ounce bottles. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
Welcome back. Stan?
Yeah. First of all, I think things like this helps. And you, of course, asking the right questions. One of the things that we must do or should have done a little bit better at the association is to tell people why these things exist. For example, we are governed by the international event, the number of officials we can take. We're governed by that. And one of the challenges for Bermuda, unlike some countries, is when we take 7 athletes to an event, that 7 athletes may represent 4 different sports. For example, in St. Kitts, at the Commonwealth Games, they were able to have a full complement of officials because they only had 1 sport with 7 athletes. For us, each sport is allocated an official to deal with that section of the sport. For example, even me as chef, I can attend the meeting, but the sport representative is the one that makes the decisions, right? So therefore, having 4 sports, that's automatically 4 officials. And that's not a good complement for an athlete in a major games, because most times you want to have a coach, and then you want to have somebody who's specifically there to manage the administration part. Well, for Bermuda, we haven't been doing that. We've been telling the coach that he has to be the official. So there are times when he has to leave his program to attend meetings. For example, the chef's meeting is every single day, most times at 7, no matter where you are in the world. And if you miss that chef's meeting, you could miss any changes that are taking place. So you don't always have the time to attend a meeting for the sport. So that's one of the reasons you have a multi-number of officials, because the requirement is to represent the athlete at all the individual sporting events. Some countries have so much athletes because there's also a quota based on the number of athletes you have. And they have so many athletes. For example, Canada in Australia had 300 or so athletes. And the quota is something like 1/3. So they had more officials than they needed. Now, I've, at times when I'm chef, I attempted to see if I get somebody to give us one of the spots in order to have our athletes fully complemented. then the chef is not counted in to the calculation. When they tell me you only got 10 spots, they mean I'm only got 10 spots. And if I'm got 4 sports and a couple of them have multiple athletes, it's very difficult for me to support them all. And that's a decision that has to be made. It's a difficult decision, but it has to be made from the executive level. And once it's made, each person that is chosen to go has a job to do. Now, we've had challenges where, like I said, people go and they don't know their job, and I'll be frank with you, as the chef, I used to ensure I knew when the meetings were. I used to ensure that I didn't see them at the time of the meeting somewhere else, because I wanted to make sure, and that's my job now, to make sure that the athletes have the best possible experience. Because if you're not comfortable, you can't perform, And so I took that seriously, having been an athlete, and I just believe that you do whatever it takes to give them the opportunity to perform. Now, some don't like the discipline that I require, because I require, for example, to know where you are, whether you're on the village or off the village. I require for women not to move without a companion, because I know of what is possible in those environments. Some athletes think they're above the law. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge all the time. And I challenge myself to get better at every event. I challenge myself to get a better understanding. One of the things my president used to do was visit every athlete right after their event. Well, I couldn't do that. First of all, I am emotional about success. I'm very emotional because my expectations are high. And I sometimes, you would wonder where I am. I'm too emotional. I love when we see success. I can remember I was home here watching Flora, and frankly, my friend, I was in tears. And the reason is that I spent all of these years with the promise that one day we'll get another medal. And that was my goal the whole time. It wasn't about Stan Douglas. It was about what can we do to give them the better experience. So when we went to Australia and watched the young triathlon team, because we had 2 youngsters who fought their way, they need the investment now. They need the investment, because I think that our future, if you look at when Flora started at 13, and I think at 18 or 19, she won a junior competition, right? International junior competition. We should have all known then that she was good. She was capable of beating some of the best juniors. So we have to also look at the fact that her challenge, she started international competition at 18 or something like that, and she matured to where she is now. And sometimes, Dennis, when you have that athlete that doesn't look like they're going to get it, you got to figure out whether their timing will fit with yours. Because maybe like you got them at a level that they're not capable of at that time. And the plan should be always to, yes, be honest, but also seek to give them opportunity to develop. And that's a very difficult thing in your sport, because it's a team sport and your balance is required, meaning that each individual has a square and they have to be able to hold that square. So that's very difficult. But at the same time, you might be able to assess that kid needs to go in another group until then they're ready for this. My grandson plays in California, and the team that he's in, he runs hard, plays hard, but sometimes he doesn't understand where the rest of the team is. It's 1 or 2 guys like himself that's just a little bit above most, but not good enough to go into the next level. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is letting him know that. We let him know that, listen, you're not going to always be the kingpin out here on the field, but you got to learn something from it. You know?
That's to me, that's huge. And one of the most important things you said was guys have to put the work in.
Yeah.
Like, what you see on TV, that's the product.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't see the process of what it takes to what you see on TV.
And I talk about that all the time because, when you've been in this business of supporting athletes for the number of years, I think I was probably about 29 or so when Austin Wood sat down with me and said, would you consider being a member of the BOA? So I put a lot of years in with hope that we'll have success. I put a lot of years in athletics because even before I became president, I was a technical person. Then I was a vice president in charge of the program for athletics, meaning that I did all the meets and learned a lot because we had a lot of good people around. And it was good. It was good. But I also had hopes of seeing people stay in the game long enough because in athletics and probably in a lot of other sports, we have some fantastic female athletes. And what we really need is something like fantastic coaches, women coaches, who can deal with the transition of time with those women. Because by the time they're 16 in Bermuda, some guy playing soccer comes along and says, I want you to be my girlfriend. And she goes to watch him play soccer, but he doesn't come to athletics. Right? And again, it's about community. We had 30 or so people every year from 1976 or so going to Carifta. And that's because we built a community. In the stands, those people supported the ones competing. And it became a community, and women need a community. In particular, we had a couple of athletes who were so good, they went and played netball. Because they could just go out on the field because they were natural athletes. They can go out on the field, on the pitch, and play netball as good as most. So we have to build communities. Netball's trying to build a good community there. They have a lot of hardworking administrators. One of the hardest things, though, in administration is trying to get people to see the long-term picture. Because what I find is in our communities, everybody cheers success, but they're not there during the developmental phase. They're not there, man. I always, when people talk about Flora, I always say, thanks to her parents who stood fast behind her dreams. And I want Bermuda to know that if you don't dream and you don't plan, you don't get anywhere. Right. And without support, because there are times you need support, because all sport is mental. All sport is mental. And if you don't have the support, you just don't make it. Not that you're not the best, because sometimes the best don't make it because they don't have the support.
Right. Before I let Dennis ask another question, we do have a question. Stan, would you be willing to offer your knowledge and experience with other sports in regards to leading administrators?
Yeah, I would. You remember, a lot of good people are administrating sport in Bermuda. And a lot of them have the will. They work hard. Sometimes they have the team and sometimes they don't, because it's no one individual that makes sport what it is. There's no one individual that makes sport what it is. I was lucky to work early with the BOA when they had folk there that can get things done. So when you went to the meeting was update. What's the next challenge? and then we go away and we do our work and we come back. That was good. And I will give whatever time I can to people of sport, because it saves young people, and nowadays it educates them.
Mhm.
I look at David and the program at the BFA, and they're now doing scholarships themselves for athletes. And if you look at their program, Dennis, and you're in there, if you look at the program, you see the personal development of athletes when they go off to college and then they come back. And if you look at the Bermuda team now, it's coming back to a substantial competitive nature because of the things that you guys are doing off of the pitch. And I want to congratulate you guys for that, because this under 19 team is looking fabulous. And that doesn't just happen because what you do is you create examples for them, and they want to now, instead of them want to be like Essien and Ronaldo, they want to be like Dennis Brown, right? Closer to home now. And maybe they have somebody like yourself to listen to when they're trying to learn, because again, sport is about learning. It's about personal discipline. And if you don't have that, no matter how talented you are, you're not going to make it. I remember when Sean Goder was a little boy on Court Street, and his mother would have to buy him a football at least 5 times a year, because if he wasn't playing of North Village, he was kicking that ball against the wall until when it was no good. That's the discipline that got him recognized. And then I tell people he probably wasn't the greatest player, but he was the most coachable player. So he took time to learn. And we have to talk to young boys like that. I tell my grandson, you can't make it in soccer if you're a dummy. You can't make it. I tell him all the time, you can't make it if you're a dummy. So I believe that education, that's the skill to learn, is so important in all sport, that when the NCAA looks at athletes, they look at those two capable. Are they willing to learn? Are they coachable? Are they disciplined enough to follow a program that I'm going to give them so that at the end they have a degree?
Mm.
So we got to bring sport back in its place in our community and recognize that for some young men and young women, their success is not in the classroom. They're going to always come 5th or 6th, but they need to find their way first, find their personal, challenge themselves personally to be better. And most times for a young man, that happens in sport. But then when you say to them, listen, but you got to learn this. If not, I can't let you out of my class for the game. Huh? And that's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. But we have to do it. While loss in sport, as I said, in track and field back in our day, there was some 30 plus people training on a daily basis. On our beach day, which was fun and pain, climbing that hill over there on Horseshoe Bay, or running a relay through the sand and through the hills. And Clive Long at the time would be a little punchy, and he'll put some of these slower guys beside the women. So you had to work hard because you didn't want to be the check of the week. Okay? So there's a lot of skill in sport. There's a lot of motivation. You find out what motivates a guy or a girl, then you have a tool in your pocket to get them to do the things that are necessary. What I found out later was some of the guys who started after me and passed me were the ones who were doing the extra on the beach and the extra here and there, because again, it's personal. They wanted to be in Carifta and they wanted to win. So it's a journey, my friend.
Okay, a question. It may ruffle a little bit of feathers a little bit.
Mm.
Do you think that past track and field athletes could have done more to assist the sport, i.e., coming back to coach. You see a lot of ex-football players come back to coach. You see a lot of cricketers come back to coach. Do you think a lot of past athletes could have come back to assist the association and Bermuda in coaching our athletes?
That's a difficult question, but here's the deal as I see it, and I could be wrong. Some athletes who spent their time in university and etc. competing and in the international world sometimes want to be set themselves away from the sport for a while, and they come back later. Some, for example, like Brian Wellman, who loves the sport to death, when he came back, he started coaching some juniors and things like that. And his knowledge was passed on because that's the learning part. He was able to tell them what it's really like. There are some who just don't have the personality to coach. They just don't have it. You know, they love the sport. And if you call them out for support, some of them will come and some of them wouldn't. Some of them are just tired. And then some of them still have self goals for sport or career. Because I tell you, one of the things coming back to Bermuda from school, you have to work. You have to make your own way. And some of them are looking forward to that. Now, I've seen under Donna Rayner that she was able to, as a leader, motorize them back into the sport for particular tasks. We have one or two that come just to be an official. We have one or two, like Terry Lynn Painter, who loves her sport so much that she wants to create another Terry Painter, another Sonia Smith. You know, these folks, they have a different passion. I had a different passion. I just felt that sport did enough for me that I will spend some time trying to be better. If I can do better, for example, when I went on to the Olympic Association, I was on the standards technical committee, and I spent time doing research on what the world rankings look like compared to what our athletes look like. And therefore, when we argued around the table, I can say, look, this person is here at the moment, and in time they can be better. But this is where they are now, because sometimes athletes don't know where they are now. They just don't know. They think that because they're the best in Bermuda, that they can be the best in the world. Well, if you're not competing against them, Brian Wellman is absolute proof. Flora Duffy is absolute proof that once they get to a certain point, they need to be in the field of people of their caliber for them to improve.
And talking about Brian Wellman, man, I was very impressed when he came on the show. And I think, and this is just my personal opinion, this guy's underused in Bermuda. This guy was a world-class athlete. Like, I think he got to the ranked second or something in the world.
Yeah.
And so he knows what it takes to be a world-class champion.
Absolutely.
So some association needs to get this guy, because I'm looking at a job that Troy's got at Ajax.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody has to get a hold of Brian Wellman, and Brian Wellman needs to get these players or whoever up to scratch in relations to running correctly. Because I went to Ajax in 2011. I took a bunch of kids there, and Troy was there, and Troy gave us a session on the correct way to run and stuff like that. And these are things that our young players had never seen before.
Yeah,
and the work that's required to get to that level. So I think Brian is underused. And no disrespect, he works at on the dock, get him off the get him into the schools, get him into different programs around Bermuda, and to enhance our athletes, because that guy is a world class. And to listen to him talk
Yeah.
about his work ethic and his regime, how he got in shape, and you know what I mean. That needs to be transcended into our modern day players, football, any sport. You know
Any
what I mean?
sport, any sport, and that's why I talk about the learning phase of sport. I talk about the personal discipline part of sport. I talk about setting your own personal goals, because I think that sometimes we don't realize, and you probably know, because when you're out on that field, doesn't matter what your coach told you, it matters what you learned from him, right? Because you are the one playing the role, not him. He can tell you that you're not completing the task the way you were instructed, or he can tell you how to complete the task, but it's up to you. If you don't have the knowledge, you're not going to make it. If you don't have it, you're not going to make it. And I don't care how good you are. You have to have the knowledge of self, and you have to have the knowledge of your sport. And that's where I only speak of Brian Wellman because I had an opportunity to go to the World Athletic Championships in Japan in, I guess it was around 91. And Brian and Troy arrived in the early hours of the morning. We saddled them in the room, and they said to me, don't call me till tonight. They went in there and rest. Brian had a fetish for chocolate. And the next day he said, are you going to come with me to the training pitch? And I said, yes. And when I got out there, we were doing squats. Those days I could probably squat 200. I saw Brian do 550.
Whoa.
And I said, what you doing? He says, no, I'm just getting myself ready for the explosion. So you know what I'm saying? This is a guy, man. Yeah, he's my hero. He's my hero. Okay,
I told you that guy is special.
He's my hero. But I want Bermuda to know that this guy is incredible. You understand me? He's incredible, and he does have a lot to offer. He does. But you know, in Bermuda, you got to eat, right?
Yep, that's it.
You got to eat. So sometimes we lose potential coaches and others through the fact that they have to eat. And when it comes to financing sport, there's not those local companies that were doing it back in the 70s. You know, when we had a guy like Ward Young who would say, I'm going to pay for 3 athletes that's going to Carifta. We don't have people that's supporting young athletes like that, except for the associations. And most of the associations are struggling for money. No matter how good their plan is, they are struggling for money. And we're actually blessed that the Olympic movement had decided some years ago to give a portion of their receipts to each island. Some countries get a lot more than us because they have bigger teams, but the IOC has put in some programs to assist small nations like ours, who without them will have no money. So I tell people in Bermuda that if you want success, identify and support early. If you want another Florida Duffy, you have to identify young athletes and you have to support them through their association. And I can tell you that if, for example, you're going to a Carifta and you had 10 people pay for one athlete's ticket, that's something the association doesn't have to worry about anymore. Now they have to focus on ensuring that the athlete is ready, ensuring that they're disciplined enough to be repetitive. Because the IAAF, IAF now, I think, decided some years ago that Carifta was the junior international in the English-speaking Caribbean and that they will support it. But they can't support the whole games. And the money that they support it with, and you can ask Donna Rayner this, the money that they support it with goes a lot further in some Caribbean countries with a different economy. So when we hosted in Bermuda, we're having to do a magnificent job with less. However, when you see young people participating for the country, it's what they need at the time to set standards for themselves. I can remember one of my worst experiences were I had 3 guys who felt that they should go to Carifta because they were the fastest in Bermuda. The team that selected the team said no, and I had to be the word because I was president. I was beaten up in the press. The next year, 2 of them went to Carifta because they had improved enough and qualified. One of them came up to me at Carifta and says, "Thank you for not sending me last year." He said, because the girl from Jamaica just ran the time faster than I was running. You got me what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's where you have to be honest with people. And I tell you, it was tough because, we saw the potential in those athletes, but it was tough because if you didn't qualify, you shouldn't go. The next time the guy went, and I just amazed at him. And in that same year that he qualified, he improved so much that he went to CAC Juniors. So what I'm saying is, yes, Dennis, you asked that question earlier about just telling them no. But I tell you what, man, a lot of people, even coaches, want their kids to go without setting a personal standard for them. I'm glad that I was able to handle the wave that came at me. But when that kid said to me, "Thank you for not sending me," I knew that my team had made the right decision. So,
any final question, Dennis?
Yeah. So my last question is, how important, because this question comes up all the time, how important, because I look at past athletes like, looking at Flora, looking at Tyler, other past athletes, how important is investment in our sport? Because without the family support, Flora and Tyler had that family support. How important is investing in our athletes outside of Bermuda? Because we all, like you said, these guys thought they were the best things in sliced bread in Bermuda. But when you get overseas, you're like the young lady Sha'Carri Richardson, coming last against my Jamaican girls. So how important is investment and also getting our athletes out of Bermuda at an early age for international competition?
okay. First of all, the platform for athletics was always been getting the athlete into a school overseas for scholarship or partial scholarship. And what it does is it opens the athlete's eyes to the possibilities. Because first of all, the athlete has to buy into the long range program. Once they buy into that, then it's our job as administrators to find support. And support's not always money, but it is a major phase in when you're trying to, for example, Brian Wellman was traveling through Europe on a week-by-week basis in order to compete with the best in the world. So yes, investment is a major part, but there is a major job for us as administrators to ensure that there is a plan for the athlete. And that involves the coach, it involves its national administration body, so that the athlete has a knowledge of the game plan and is willing to participate, because there are some people that we want to invest in that don't have it in them long term because they're not willing to do the work. That's why I mentioned the 100 meters at Tokyo. The work that all of them are just as fast. Remember this, but it's the work that they do off the track, off the competition site, that gives them the strength to be to hold it all the way through. They said when I used to run, they said that once you hit the 70, it's the person that slows down the most that doesn't win. The person that wins slows down the least. Right? So they're all fast, but it's about strength, and it's about investment in them so that they can focus on it. So for track and field back in my day, in order for our young people to get to be in an international stage, you go to college. And in college, you get to see Nigerians, you get to see Kenyans, you get to see all people from around the world, because other countries saying, this child is good enough, but I have to get them an environment where I can give them enough meets. For example, in the university system, there's 13 indoor meets and 12 outdoor meets. In Bermuda, if we can get 5 or 7 meets, then that's good. However, when you're in the college, you travel from one weekend to the other. Therefore, you're seeing people that you don't train with and you don't compete with every day. That sets a mental position where you know you have to be ready, and you have to run your own race. You have to be that person that you know you can be. So that gives them self-confidence, and then you begin to invest in them. The NCAA had rules when I was there where we couldn't really give them money. I think some of those things are changing as far as when they're representing a country. Okay, but financing an athlete who has a plan, who has a work ethic, and who has a talented coach who can say to you, I always remember Jerry Swan, I would say to him, what do you think they're going to do this year? And he had a chart, because he was a real coach. He had a chart. He said, this is what they're doing now. This is what we're going to do to correct some things. And this is what they're going to be next year. So we need more coaches who can do that, who can produce a long-term plan for an athlete's development so that we know what we're investing in. You can't just go to somebody and say, I've got this athlete and we need money. We have to let them know what the goal is, where they're going to go. Clarence Nicky Saunders was successful because he put his program on paper and went to Balco, spoke to Alf Orton. And Alf Orton believed in him and said, I'm going to give you, and it was a minimum number of dollars, I'm going to give you this every year. And he just got on the circuit, and whatever money he had, he made it work. Whatever money his mother contributed to it, he made it work. But he was worth the investment because he knew where he wanted to go and what he wanted to achieve. So when he won the Commonwealth Gold Medal at a racket, which still stands today, and that was in New Zealand, I can't remember the year, but that was some time ago. But he knew where he was going. Him and his coach had discussed where he can go, and he made up his mind to do it. And he was out there on the circuit, not in the greatest living quarters, not in the greatest experience, but his desire to be a champion made him who he is. So yes, investment, and I believe in it. I believe in investing, but I also believe that we have to start looking at what is truly possible. We have some sports in Bermuda that want to go international, and they're only at a community level. And I know I might get bashed for that, but they're only at a community level. Secondly, they don't have a plan for success. And if you don't have that plan, and you don't have that desire, and you don't have the knowledge of where you actually are now, it's going to be difficult. So when you get calls, Earl, to say that guy's talking trash, well, I'm telling you, after 40 plus years, I recognize that if you don't have a plan, then you don't plan to succeed at all. And if you can't stick to that plan, I remember seeing Flora in London, and everybody says, oh, she came 42nd or something like that. And I said, but you didn't see her. You didn't see her eyes. You didn't see her determination. If it wasn't for an accident, I can assure you she would have been in the top 10. I can assure you, because her attitude was right. Her work ethic was already complete. And when she got in the accident, she looked over her shoulder and got up and said, I'm still going. Because for her, it was about finishing. If you don't have that in you, I don't know if we can invest in you. If you don't have the commitment to the work that is required, if you don't have a commitment to your place socially in the community, no one's going to want to invest in you, boss.
Mm.
You know, because it's more than just your performance. They're trying to create heroes for the community. Did you see how galvanized we were as a community after that, Vian? So it has a place in society that nobody talks about. Sport has a place in society that nobody talks about because they think that making money alone is all that it takes. But if you invest in a young person, you create a hero. You create somebody for other young people to say, it is possible. And that is my goal, to help society by showing that we have people that can do it. With hard work and some investment, we can create another one. It took us, I don't know how many years since Clarence Saunders, right? But think about it. That's time and investment. It's time and investment. And it changes society. When Flora won it, people were over City Hall beeping the horns. And I was sitting here just with tears in my eyes, and my son called me from California, and he says, Dad, what are they doing in Bermuda? What are they doing? Said, this is the biggest thing that's happened to us in years. And he knows my passion for sport. He had to sit around Dandytown when I was over there working with the administration, putting up fencing for the games. You know, that was just before we came up, Dennis, and you guys hammered us up in Somerset in what is now the Charity Cup.
Okay.
So that's where my memory is. That's how much effort I have put in club life and sport, because I believe it changes people. I believe it sets a path for personal development. I believe that it helps them to plan. With good coaching, you show an athlete what to do in order to get better. So that's my passion. And if someone came to me and said, can you come and let's talk about what we can do to create a plan for our sport, I will read and position myself to give my passion and my knowledge to trying to get that plan together, because we have a lot of great young people who need to see what winning really is. We have some people that are great athletes that have no drive because they don't see where it's going to take them. I tell people, when you talk to young boys, 10 to 14, you have to tell them why you're learning something, because that's the age when they start to ask you, well, why should I do that? And I'm sure you see that because you're a coach of all levels. You see that you have to tell young people why. And then when they buy in, they become more coachable, because they start to set internal goals for themselves. I want to be better. I want to be better than Dennis Brown. I want to be on the national team. When they start doing that, then sport has helped them to develop self goals. This thing, man, I'm in it till I die. My son is over at UCLA, not UCLA, Cal Berkeley. Yeah, Cal Berkeley. And every now and then we communicate about what's going on, because he's like a professor of, God, it's a long title, but he works with the athletes. And we talk about it all the time, because my passion for sport and what it can do. He understands that, and he's now taking that philosophy to this university, following the football team, following the male football team. He's following these athletes and trying to tell them what I've philosophized, that sport is a part of your learning. And if you can put that discipline into sport, you can transfer that discipline into your life and what you want to achieve. That's my passion. That's why I was there for that long. And when I felt that I couldn't contribute in my early days of this disease, I decided that I was going to step away. One day, they might call me and say, could you be on a committee or something? And I'll be willing to do it because I know what it's done for me. Now, there's some people who had so much success in sport when they were young that they don't have the fire. They don't have a reason for being in it, Dennis.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But when you've had some success, and mine wasn't always in sport, my success was in my community of sport. When you have some success, you form a passion to get yourself ahead. You form that passion. And I wish that we can pass on a few bags of passion to some very knowledgeable people to get them back into sport. And it doesn't have to be the above 16s, because in sport, it takes a while to find the star. So you have to get them skilled first. Especially in soccer, you have to get them skilled before you can place them in the team. Right? So we have to remember that investing in someone who's already made it is great. But if you invest in somebody for the long haul, you will have more Duffys. You'll have more Brian Bowmans. And that's what I work towards. Now that I'm here, I'm always saying, what's next? And my family, my kids are always saying, Daddy, you need to do something more. I'm controlling my my dialysis now, and there will be a time when I'll come back to sport in a different capacity. See, I don't have to be in the front, but I have to know that we're affecting the lives of young people. I have to know that. Okay, I was the secretary general at the BOA, and at the time it was not a paying job. I did it for love. Today, you don't get people just doing it for love anymore. They need to be paid. But there's still one or two people like myself, even our friend Norbert Simons, who thinks it's important to affect the lives of young people. We think it's important to do that. And I just wish that Bermuda would be. Did you see what he said?
Yeah, we see.
But I wish Bermuda would just understand that if we don't affect the lives of young people, we're going to have nobody to pay into the pension plan, nobody working. And in order for a guy my age now to get his pension, it has to remain funded. You got me? So we have to see young people as more than a pest and a nuisance. We have to see young people as the future us. We have to. And again, that's where my passion lies. I've seen some great young people move forward in all sports. And we have to remember that it's a long-term road to success. It doesn't just start when you see somebody outstanding in Bermuda. It starts when we find the road for them to travel, and we invest not just money, but our support, so that they can get through the mental strains of competing. And all sports have that. And if you're winning, everybody's up, yay, 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 yay. But if you're developing, you may not be winning, and you may be thrown away too soon. And that happens here. A lot of athletes of quality are thrown away too soon.
Earl, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Because Stanley's gonna get me kicked out of the house. My daughter's looking at me like, Daddy, I need a kiss before I go to sleep. But anyway, how
She's
do
more
you
important.
feel? She's my girl. So how do you feel uh, a sports academy in Bermuda can work? Because I look at things like not everybody, and it doesn't just have to be a football academy. It could be a total sports academy,
Mm,
and not everybody's going to be a national team player right away in
yeah,
the national academy right away.
I
Like
agree.
you said, some athletes develop later. So my thinking is if we had a sports academy in Bermuda to get them to that point of the associations, Bermuda would be in a much better place than it is now, although we're making progress. But I feel that, you know, a sports academy in Bermuda can be something that we should look towards.
And when you speak of academy, are you talking about directing it just towards sport or directing it to the whole person?
The whole person.
Meaning
I'm
that
looking
there's an
at
academic element to it.
I'm looking
Because-
at you. We have a college here in Bermuda, Bermuda College.
Mhm,
And I'm looking at something like you go school during the morning, and then afternoons you perform your discipline.
yes.
And this happens all over the world. You go to academies in anywhere else this is happening. You go school in the morning, and then afternoons you deal with your discipline.
But
And
when you're a scholarship athlete, that's exactly how it works,
mhm,
right? Now, in our economy, there's a lot of things that hinder it. Like I said, some of our top athletes come back from school and they have to go straight to work, and there's not enough time for training. So yes, an academy will fulfill the continuum of young athletes being able to train and find themselves with academics and sport. I don't think, though, that this country has a high value on sport until when we have a winner.
Hmm.
mhm,
Okay, and
yeah,
having been in sport administration for a long time, there is not enough understanding of what sport can do for your society. It brings discipline to young men and women. It brings goal setting to them. So yes, an academy will definitely assist in the development, but I just don't think we have the culture of what sport can do for individuals. We just don't have it. Everybody was happy for Flora when she won. Come on now. I've sat around the table and I've had people on the committee who believed that the time was now. And the young lady told me why. And I said, I already know the time is now because people in triathlon mature at 32. Between 32 and 35 is the maturity. The girl who won in Brazil was 32 or 31. You understand what I'm saying? So when you know the sport and you know it takes that long to develop, then we have to start talking about the culture of sport and the development of young people. So the whole idea of this academy meets two needs because you have to meet both. You have to meet both when you're dealing with young people. You have to maintain interest in academics, and that is transferred into their personal development in sport. Because if you don't understand what your coach is saying, if you don't understand why you're doing something, what use is it? Think about it. What use is it? I was told that Nikki Bascom was in a special ed thing. that helped him get focused. I was told by his grandfather that when he was in college, they call it red-shirted, but when they sent him home from the football team that he was in and said, make up your mind whether you want to play or not, yeah? His grandfather sat him down and said, hey, buddy, do you want to try drive truck or do you want to play the sport you love? So what I'm saying is we have to manage both. We're losing people because they're not interested in the academic because they don't see themselves fitting. They don't see anybody looks like them who has struggled like them. They don't realize that some of them teachers struggled in the early days. But once they made up their mind what they wanted to do in life, they were able to focus and put the blinders on for a little while, and now they can live. Well, that's what we have to start telling young people, that it's not easy. It's not going to be easy all the way, but each time you have to learn something when you're going through things so that you can be a better person. And sometimes the better person is not the winner. That's what I'm hoping I became, a better person, even though I was not the winner, but I saw a love for sport and I saw a personal development. I'm not the guy I was, Dennis, when I was like 13, 14.
Yeah, hanging around Norwood.
Yeah, and doing a lot of things that was unacceptable in my home. Got me?
Yes, sir.
So I talk about sport like that because I know it works. It worked for me, and I've seen it work for others. I've seen that a lot of the folk that was in athletics are now leaders in the community, either in sport or something that is similar, or even in their jobs, because they have the discipline to stay to the wicket and get something done. And for me, that's so important. It's so important, man. And I know I'm talking a lot tonight, but I really wanted to bring my passionate side out and let people know that I didn't do this for the public to say anything. I did it because I felt that I was going to help an athlete achieve their goal. And I've seen some good athletes lose the faith because money, opportunity. And I've seen some good athletes just give up because they really didn't have a long-term plan. They expected it to be now or never. We had a guy one time who wanted to go to an Olympics. And all I said to him was, you got to beat the women's times for me to put your name forward.
Yep.
That year, the world record for women at that games turned into something like 10.5 something, or 10.49 or something like that. Why would you want to go to the Olympics and you can't at least run the times that the best women are running? So that was me saying, let's be realistic. This might not be your time, but if you hang in there, Dennis, you can be better next year.
Yeah.
Right? Some don't get it, some do. So when you talk to people about me, that some of them don't like me because I will be honest with you about the ability because I study the stats. I study the stats.
We'll be talking soon.
Okay, brother. I'm here. I love sport, and I love the game of football. I love that.
Yeah, I love football, cricket, track and field, basketball.
I played
NFL.
goalkeeper when I was in school in Canada.
Okay.
I learned a lot from a guy named Kevin Roberts. He used to play for Somerset Bridge.
Kebo?
Kebo, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we played. and
Another one I'm about to say, who don't stop?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him.
Okay.
See, I was athletic, and I could do most things. I can catch the ball. I can get across the whole goal very quickly. And he sat me down one day. He says, you need to improve your angles. And this is what I tell my grandson. I said, soccer, football is about knowing your angles and knowing how to position yourself to take away choices that the attacker has or the defender has.
It's all about angles.
It's all about angles. Yeah. So when you relate to young men in the game, you have to tell them that they have to know the mathematics. They have to know the physics. They have to understand where they are in order to get past somebody. See, I see sport, I guess, a little bit more academically than most. I see the little intricacies that are required. The skill set has to be you, but your knowledge of your body, your knowledge of where you have to be makes the game easier. You know, I used to play a little game down at Shelley Bay Field when I was working for Marsh McLennan, and we had a couple of English guys that played, and athletically they probably weren't great, but they knew where they were supposed to be at all times. You know, and those are the things I try to bring, because I think that some of these guys are misinformed on what they really are. Some of them have a massive ability, but they don't have any knowledge of how the game is played. They don't have any knowledge of the science of the game and the mathematics that's involved in it. So if you want a guy to learn some math, the game of football is what you use to get him to understand. And you get him to understand it early, so that by the time he gets to you in the national squad, you say, I want you to be in this square and cover this angle. He now has an understanding of where he is and what his job is. Most of them have skills, Dennis, but they don't understand where to be on the field. They don't understand that this is the square. You cover the other square for the other guy, but your square is this square. And it's your job to pay attention here in this square. Anybody gets past you in this square, the other guy is going to try to cover you, but you try your best not to let that happen. So now he understands the angle, he understands his position, and then he can make adjustments after that. He can move out of position, but he knows that if they're coming down your side, that's your job. Get back as quickly as you can. But we don't talk about sport through the academic side. So we have good players who've learned nothing. So when you get them in a team position, they are the ones that are always making the mistake. Not because they're not good, just because they don't understand their role in the society of the pitch. And once they understand their role in sport and they understand their role in life, they can move forward and be greater than what they are.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man.
That's why sport, I'm sorry, man, it's just my passion.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah. So I thank you guys for this opportunity. Tell Norbert that, yes, I was diplomatic, but yeah, because
you tell him. You can
tell him yourself.
I make off with him every now and then because he has a passion for young people.
Yeah.
You know, and I can tell you this, guys. He works all day, and he puts in two hours in the evening with a host of young people, men and women, and works hard for them. And it's been a tough journey. But he also, having been an athlete, he recognizes that kids perform for their parents. So every now and then, he gets to get in the room with the parents and say, I need you to come and see what they're doing. Because if you want high performance, and I remember this when I was in athletics, my mother was working 2 jobs and doing a good job of keeping me safe. But I saw the athletes that had parents involved in the program perform for their parents, and they suddenly found out they were better than what they thought. Carol Deal's mother was always there. Debbie Jones Hunter's mother was always there. You understand what I'm saying? Brendan Smith's mother was always there. These are folks that knew what sport can do for their child and supported it. Some of them were athletes themselves who didn't have opportunity. They're growing up in the time where the racial barrier stopped them from having opportunity. A lot of that is gone. A lot of it might be still here, but a lot of it is gone now. And we have to use whatever tool we have to improve our society. Whatever tool. We turned towards academics when the international business came, and not everybody fits in a class, in an office. So we have to find a way to motivate, guide young people to be better. That's my motto. I use that all the time. I just want to be better. I want to be a better parent. I want to be better at knowing what my kids are doing, better at supporting them. That's my term for life. I just want to do it better. So the things that I saw that I didn't approve of, I try to make it better. And when young people see that you're passionately involved in the direction they're going, they listen up. They're going to make their mistakes. Remember, it's their journey that they're on. It's their journey. But in your journey, if you don't learn anything, if you don't try to make it better, then how can you become a better citizen? So that's why you get this from me right now. I'm a little bit wound up, but that's what it's about. That's what it's about. It's about the next generation, and it's about showing people in your society that you can win. And winning is not always being the Olympic gold medalist, but winning is finding where your best is. And most times it's a lot further than when you started. And if you use that as something to inspire young people, it means you have to be involved. You have to know them personally. You have to encourage them to develop their strengths and their weaknesses to make it better. And that's the motto I give. Let's make it better for young people so that we can have in the next 5 or 6 years, because remember, it takes a while to get to the top. So we have to be able to invest time over a period of time, be honest about their development, and be honest about giving them the tools to be better. That's what we should all be walking around saying. I just want to make it better.
Beautiful.
Stan, you have really, really made this night exceptional. Sharing your passion, your drive, your experiences, and I think for many that have stayed on for the entire period that you've been talking and sharing, I think you've made them want to be better and follow that lead. And I'm pretty sure you will be getting some calls just to share some more of that passion from different sports who have hit me up throughout this, asking if that's why the question came, if you will be able or willing to, just help them along. Everyone needs help, and the first part is acknowledging and asking for that help in moving forward. So again, thank you very much, Dennis. Go get your kiss.
Stan, I think
yes,
you
my
need
brother.
to go help St. George's. Go help St. George's. They need a lot of help for the Summer Classic. But at the end of the day, you're a Somerset fan, right?
No, sir.
Well, you need to do help St. George's.
Somerset didn't take on my cousin in his prime. I think it was because you had maybe Barry DeCuda up there at the time, and he was invited to St. George's, and from that day I followed him.
Okay.
That's Alan. However, the family, the Douglas family, most of them are Somerset.
I know that.
You know that, right?
Yes, I do.
Well, I followed Alan, and I was told very young that you can't change.
I thought you were a leader, not a follower, but anyway.
No. I follow family.
Stan,
I believe in support.
Stan, he's only having this conversation right now because he's already the trophy. There was a time before this here that the rules were reversed. So you know what? Enjoy your time with it, Dennis. Hug it, kiss it. It won't be there for too much longer.
Okay, brother.
Dennis, I just want to say one thing because I think you know other parts of me. Man, I used to go cup match. It wasn't for win or lose.
I know that's there.
Okay? Let's get that straight.
I know that's there.
Okay, bro?
Yes,
And
sir.
I enjoy, and because I went to school in Somerset, you would think I'm a Somerset fan because when I get up there, all my mates
You're a Somerset fan.
are Somerset boys.
Yep, yeah, I know
And
that.
I have a ball because I didn't go cup match. I didn't care about who won. There's a historical side to it that I love. And there's a social side of it that I need to get out of my system.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, man.
Okay, but I can share that with you because I think you've seen me there a few times.
Yes, I have.
And I really didn't care who was winning.
Yep, that's it.
Right? Okay, so
that's because St. George's was winning. That's because St. George's was winning.
Hey,
no comment.
Blessings, my brother. All I can say is life's a journey.
It is.
You win some and you lose some, but don't give up.
Exactly.
All right.
All right, brother.
Take care.
Been a pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your night, folks. We'll be back.
Thank you for the time, guys.
A walk down memory lane next Tuesday night. Enjoy your night.
Right on.